Sean Meyers of the Westmoreland Sports Network, now joined by the head coach of the Norwin Knights girls basketball team, Brian Brozeski. His team coming off of a PIAA victory against North Allegheny, 50-30 last week at Fox Chapel. So you now move on to the semifinals. But first, before we look ahead, Brian, look back at that quarterfinals matchup, another one against North Allegheny, and those matchups never seem to disappoint. What was that like going against the Tigers for the fourth time this season?
Yeah, you know what? Anytime you get a chance to play a quality opponent, it's always a tough matchup, let alone having to play him four times. But on that fourth time, you get a chance to just get a little bit more of an idea of what they're trying to do, and you try to make sure that you have a couple things that maybe they haven't seen yet. And so it was definitely a tough battle, and I was just glad that we were able to come out on top.
You played them very early in January at home and really dominated that game, but then they won the matchup at North Allegheny later in the regular season and obviously in the WPIAL playoffs. What changes did you make this time around?
You know what? There was a couple things just personnel wise, and there was a couple growth issues that we've also had, and that's an important feature that, players throughout the year, develop, and as they develop, they get to bring more to the table. And so I thought a couple like the significant, contributions some of the players were making were players that, maybe the first time or second time that we played them, we didn't necessarily always have there for the whole time. And so the player growth and just allowing us to be a little bit more diverse on both sides of the board is something that really helped us the second time through.
From my perspective, it seemed like the rebounding was a major facet in that victory. Defensive rebounding, even a few times on the offensive glass. What allowed you to have success in that regard?
A lot of the credit just has to go to the girls and their want to. We talk about rebounding a lot, and it's one of those skills that you could talk about the essence behind it and go through some of the fundamentals, but when it comes down to it, it's just it's more of a heart thing. And you just got to want that ball more than your opponent. And fortunately for us, our girls were able to go ahead and get after it and win those rebounds.
You had a lead for the majority of the game, but North Allegheny did make a run in the second half to really pull pretty close in the third quarter, but your team then responded. What was the message that you had, and what did you see in terms of your players' resolve at that point?
It was just keeping a cool mental focus. We were going through there, and we talked previous about how important the mental side of the game is going to be. And we were able to go ahead and rely on a couple of our quotes that our strength and conditioning coach, Mr. Ted Jasko, was able to provide for us. And one of which was, anytime you face adversity, don't feel threatened by it, feel challenged by it. And they really embraced the fact that, you see it as a challenge and something that you can overcome, and really appreciate how the girls stayed the course and stayed on task for the entire game.
Even though they're on the complete opposite side of Pittsburgh, I think it's fair to say that North Allegheny has become one of your biggest, if maybe not your biggest rival there at Norwin. What does it mean to get past them in the state playoffs and in the same breath knock off the WPIAL champions?
You know what? It's nice, but it's not the end all or say all. Our objective is to go further and to be playing on Friday and come home with a state title. So, it's always nice when you get a chance to beat a rival, but to the same respect, we got to keep it in perspective and not treat that as the goal. The goal is to keep advancing and to be playing at the Giant Stadium on Friday.
And let's go a little bit into that mindset, because you came up short of a WPIAL title, didn't make it to the championship game even. How did you quickly reshift your focus to a state run?
Again, a lot of just, talking about getting your mind in the right place. We reflected back, in sports in general. And I actually, talked a little bit about a past experience that I had. I had a chance to be part of a team that was ranked #1 in the country at Penn State. And we had an unfortunate loss, and we allowed that one loss to actually reciprocate to 2 additional losses. We lost on a Hail Mary play against a Minnesota team that we should have beat, and we had trouble recovering off that and ended up dropping the next 2 against Michigan State and Michigan. And I told the girls, you can't let a team beat you twice. You got to be able to recover off it and get your mind set back on the task at hand. And we talked about, our main objective is still available. We wanted to win Whitfield, but that didn't happen. But we still had our main objective to win state, and that's in front of us. And hopefully we can go ahead and keep advancing tomorrow.
Well, it's going to be quite a contrast, because from North Allegheny, a team that you play at least twice every year, and in this case, 4 years, to a team that you've never played against, at least during your tenure, in Cedar Cliff from District 3. What do you know about that squad?
You know what? It's exciting to play anyone outside of the Pittsburgh area as well. You know, it just neat to go through the whole process of breaking down film and trying to see, you know, where you can try to take advantages of your opponent. But it's also just refreshing just to be in different gyms and see different bodies. And so one of the advantages, you know, that we're hoping we can bring to the table is the fact that we have the ability to be flexible and diverse. And so Cedar Cliff has a lot of good size. They got 2 forwards that are 6'2", and they got a really strong guard that works the ball inside real well. And so the paint game is going to be a challenge. But if you just sag in on the paint, they got shooters on the outside that can go ahead and make you pay for it as well. So definitely got to be sound on the defensive side. And we're going to definitely need to attack that glass. Winning the rebounding battle is going to be a big challenge, but it's going to be a challenge that we're going to embrace. And we got to come out on top of that challenge.
And it feels like this is a scenario you've been preparing for when you play teams in the non-conference like South Fayette that have incredible size. Are those past experiences and the great competition you've faced ultimately going to maybe allow you to be ready right out of the gate for an opponent like Cedar Cliff?
Yeah, so our schedule really has helped us in multiple facets. Not only were we playing quality opponents, but the time too. We've been through some of these scenarios where you're playing high caliber teams in the state in 2 days turnaround or in a 3-day turnaround. So the ability to just, you know, take what you did and what you do well, but also be able to make a few subtle adjustments without, you know, slowing down the mindset. You know, you can't be out in the court thinking. You got to be able to just react. And so been really impressed with how the girls have gone through the year to take, you know, the mental side that we're implementing in our game plan and be able to execute it at a high level and a high speed.
And lastly, this is a massive game because the winner does move on to play for a state championship in the highest classification. So there's a lot on the line. And for the team that comes up short, it has to be obviously very disappointing to come up 1 game short of playing in Hershey. So how do you make sure that everyone has the right mindset and the right mentality to not get overwhelmed by this?
You know what? When it's all said and done, all the exterior factors are just that. They're exterior factors. You just got to go out there and realize this is still a basketball game. The hoop's going to be 10 foot tall. You know, everything's staying the same. You just channel your energy in a positive direction and rely on your teammates to have positive energy for the game and focus on one another. If we're able to go ahead and realize that, you know, we're not in this any one-on-one, it's Norwin basketball team versus everyone. And that's the mentality we got to have. No one person has to try to take us through this. And so, you know, it's going to be an exciting game. It's going to be a challenging game, but it's definitely going to be a game that we're going to embrace.
Well, Brian, thanks so much for doing this. We appreciate it. Congratulations on getting to this point, and hopefully this is not the last time I have a chance to talk to you this season.
Sounds good, sir.